Hey everybody, it's Carter Froelich. And our mission at Launch Development Finance Advisors is to be a hero to the land development and home building community. We do that through a lot of different ways, but one of the ways that I want to give back to the industry is to be able to share our experience as well as the experience of a myriad of different players in our industry, their experience, what they've learned, what they're doing, and just the knowledge that they have to provide to the industry. With that having been said, I hope you enjoy this episode. And if there's anything that we can do at launch to help you finance infrastructure, reduce costs, mitigate risk, all with the goal of enhancing project profitability and returns, please give us a call at the contact information in the show notes.
Welcome to the Land to Lots podcast, powered by Launch Development Finance Advisors. And now your host, Carter Froelich.
Hello, everybody. It's Carter Froelich, and welcome to the next episode of Land to Lots. And I am really excited to welcome to the mic an old friend of mine. We go way back, Charley Freericks. And Charley, welcome to the show. It's great to see you.
Carter, thanks so much for having me. It's fun. I'm really looking forward to it. It's our paths cross all the time. We don't spend a lot of time together daily, but we've been at it. We've been at it for 30 years.
30 years, I know. And so we're going to talk a little bit about your history and how you got to where you're at. But for those of our listeners who may not be familiar with Charley, Charley is the president and of the Phoenix region of Howard Hughes, and he is currently leading the development effort on Teravalis, a 37,000 acre plus master plan community located in West Phoenix, in the city of Buckeye, Arizona. And so before we jump into Teravalis, Charley, maybe you could tell our audience a little bit about yourself and the path you took to get to where you're at right now with Howard Hughes.
Perfect. Well, Carter, I've had time to reflect over the last few years to think about how did I get here? And what's really interesting is I stumbled into the land business in 1983. I joined Grubb Ellis as just a gopher for a broker named Bill Gosnell, and our very early clients in that program, interestingly, were land developers that had done high quality business parks. Mm-hmm. So, I was dealing with CC&Rs and landscape restrictions and design review and all that stuff right out of the chute, right after I left school. And I ended up my career just flowed through a series of land deals, land opportunities. And I've been a land guy my whole career. Most people, look backwards and you don't have that common of a theme, but I did 7 years with Grubb Ellis. I went to a company called Talley Industries, which was a local manufacturer. I joke it was a manufacturer with a real estate hobby. And I spent 7 years there. They'd gotten into the unregulated lending business just in time for the S&L crisis.
Yeah, boy.
I literally got my master's degree in bank and failed real estate issues. And we cleaned up a pretty big mess there and got it organized. And then we liquidated the company at the direction of the CEO and the board. Mm-hmm. And I got a little time off, and I went to DMB, and I spent 20 years, just short of 20 years at DMB, and so that's where you and I met.
Yep.
And DMB was my education in master plan community development. We had an R&D lab going. We were trying to do cool, fun, new community thinking, and we had some great partners. We were talking about your backdrop looks like it might be at Rancho Mission Viejo in Orange County, and I spent a lot of time learning from that team. They were amazing. I was with Paul Johnson from their team yesterday, actually.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. Paul's a great guy.
I spent 20 years there. DMB, changed direction and basically doesn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. They're winding down. They have Verado and some odds and ends. Mm-hmm. And all my compatriots from the original DMB crowd started DMB development. They're still going. I went down the road and I ended up doing 8 years with Catellus, developing the Novus Innovation Corridor, which is another land deal, big mixed use master plan on ASU's Tempe campus. And when I look back, I've had just these amazing opportunities to work on great things, all the way from Eaton Business Parks and Talley Business Parks, all the way through now Teravalis. I had decided it was time to retire in 2024.
And what happened? Yeah.
Well, I don't know what happened. I gave notice, and ASU and Catellus asked me to stay and consult. So I didn't tell anybody I'd retired. We were negotiating terms of a consulting agreement to stay on and sort of ease into retirement, which would have been great. And phone rang, and it was an internal recruiter at Howard Hughes. And I had followed Douglas Ranch my whole career, right? Douglas Ranch was 40,000 acres originally, and I had chased it as a broker at Grubb Ellis. I had chased it as a industrial company at Talley Industries, and I chased it a couple times at DMB. And then when it sold to JDM back in the early 2000s. And it's like, okay, it sold. They paid good money for it. And DMB, we didn't buy land. We partnered with people too. And so it's like, well, that opportunity, I don't have to worry about that anymore. So I quit thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, and the phone rings, and Howard Hughes purchases in interest, or all of it. I mean, we can talk about what that sale looks like. The phone rings, and they go, "Hey, Charlie, would you like to come back into the game? We got 40,000 or 37 plus 3 acres for you to play with." What went through your mind, when that call or that opportunity presented itself?
Well, it's a great question, Carter, because what happened is I met my predecessor on the ULI advisory board. They asked me to introduce him to the advisory board, which group about 20 people that advise the chair at the local chapter. And I did a fireside chat with him, and we had a nice visit, and I told him I was jealous of his opportunity, and it was all good. That was February of 24. I saw him at Trends Day in February of 24, and then saw the Business Journal announce that he had left. And it's one of those, I wonder what they're going to do. Yeah. And the thing that Howard Hughes learned looking here in town is, it's a 100-year project. We debate all the time. Is it 50? Is it 100? Is it, it's a long-term project. And what happened in the great financial crisis is Phoenix, which is a huge proving ground for master plan community developers, right? We have lots of action here. The market ceased, and we quit growing people that developed ground up master plan communities. If you think about it for a minute, think of the guys doing master plans. They all look like some version of you and me. They got some gray.
They're getting older.
So the youngsters, when the GFC hit, were in their 40s, maybe 40s, early 50s. They're now owners of companies or owners of communities they're developing. They're not looking to go anywhere. And Howard Hughes was looking for some youth because they wanted legs for a long run here. And they couldn't find anybody with the experience they were looking for. And so the old guy got the call. I had, I know all the rules about HR, and I worked this poor recruiter over a little bit. I go, so you gotta tell me the truth. What's going on here? And he's funny. He goes, well, we were looking for a younger person.
You're young at heart, Charlie. You're young at heart. Yeah.
I said, well, I'm kind of young. So he was going to explain the property to me, and I said, you don't have to do that. I've chased that thing my whole life. Tell me what you're thinking on the job. And what they really wanted is about 3 things. They wanted to build their reputation locally. And I managed to keep my nose clean for most of my career. So They thought I would be an interesting fit from a reputation building perspective. They asked me if I knew anybody in Buckeye. And, when you and I met, we did Verado. We annexed into Buckeye.
Yep.
The current mayor was an employee at Verado, the first resident. And we've stayed friends because we were involved in Fighter Country Partnership supporting Luke Air Force Base.
Yeah.
So I said, I know a couple people in Buckeye. No one has to introduce me. I'll be okay there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we loved Buckeye at DMB, and we love it right now. Again, It's like, hey, it's a real homecoming. So we had a good talk, and I tell everybody that was a Thursday. I have a weird memory. I got a call that the next day that the CEO was actually coming into town while they were between leadership here.
Yep.
And he officed here every week, David O'Reilly.
Yep.
And you've had him on this show.
Yeah, David's been on the show. So. And
he and I clicked right away, and we talked a little bit. And he was leaning into a 5-year commitment, and I was 67, 66, going on 67 at the time. And I said, look, 5 years from now, I don't know what that looks like. I can't even imagine. So we went back and forth. I flew up to Houston about a week later. Now, to put things in perspective, I had retired.
Yeah.
I had 40 days booked in Alaska, all of late May and all of June. And I told him, I said, hey, I'm sorry, but I've booked my whole family on a rotating trip. I'm going up to my cabin. They're going to roll through.
Yeah.
And I interviewed, and then I got on an airplane about 4 days later, and I went to Alaska off the grid for 40 days. And I got a nice offer in the email. I was able to check my emails.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we negotiated my terms, and I started. I got through June and July. I came down and wound down at Novus, and I started here August 12th of 24.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And so when you showed up at your office, brought your box in, your house plant, your HP, setting yourself at home. Now, Teravalis used to be Douglas Ranch. Douglas Ranch was controlled by JDM. They had done a lot of the entitlements. And you're now sitting down with this 40,000 acre master plan community. What's the first thing that you do as it relates to taking a look at in current entitlements? Where are we going to go? What is the status? What is your thinking day one, Charley, when you showed up and taking the reins of Howard Hughes in the Phoenix region?
My first thought was, oh my God, what have I done to myself?
Second thought.
My first, and I had given when this property sold to JDM, I checked out. I'm not kidding. I just said, okay, I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's done. Competent developers, and they've paid real money for it, so it's no longer a JV. And so fast forward. So I walked into the office first day, and we had our local entitlements team all in the room. And my partner from Columbia, Maryland, Greg Fitchett, is leading government affairs. You've met Greg.
Yep, Greg, great guy. Mm-hmm.
And they went around the room and just sort of, I didn't know some of them, interestingly, and I knew some of them well, and I was very excited to be back with an A team, right? So we went around the room, and my first thought was, I don't have time to worry about anything but this first 300 acres that we've tackled, because it's under construction, and I need to get my head around it.
Yep. And
the property was zoned in early 2000s, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So let's back up a step.
Yep.
So Teravalis is 37,000 acres. 34,000 of which is the original Douglas Ranch property. They sold 6,000 acres to Toyota Proving Grounds. And so they've got their original 40 went to 36. So we've got that 34, excuse me.
Yep.
And then they acquired a property called Trillium. It used to be called Trillium. We rolled them all together and we call it all Teravalis. And the first village, which is formerly the Trillium property, we call Floreo at Teravalis.
Yep.
And both original properties were zoned 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
And I describe it this way, put things in perspective. So you and I were working on Verado 20 years ago. So we zoned it.
Yeah.
Verado was the first real development project, active, gonna build, gonna sell, gonna, live, people living there. And so the zoning case on the original Douglas Ranch piece of Teravalis and the Trillium piece, they're about 40 or 50 pages.
Yeah.
Development agreement and zoning, design guide, everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Total 50 pages.
Yeah, about 50 pages. I could read it and did.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is wholly inadequate for what we're doing.
Yeah. The
world has moved on. The development community just in Phoenix has evolved to a completely different game. All these great developers, and so the development team that had been formed knew that, the entitlements team, and they were working on it. We ended up in late 24 with almost 500 pages just on the Floreo zoning case.
Yeah.
And people say, well, what do you do? Well, when we do these master plans, in Arizona in particular, we basically take the city zoning code, customize it to our property. We rewrite almost everything. Yep. And drives the cities crazy, and it's it's our hobby. But we work closely with the city staff. Everybody get through it. And it includes everything from what kind of curbs are you going to use on this width of a street? I mean, all the street widths and all that stuff get defined. It's a real implementing document for doing a master plan community. Everything you can imagine. And so we spent the better part of the team spent almost a year. I joined them late in the game, and we finished it up. So that would be my first thing. Is it's like, okay, we've got inadequate paperwork with our city arrangement. We got to go fix that.
Well, and Howard Hughes has a really interesting business plan as well. You're not the average developer, if I can say that, meaning land developer.
Yeah.
What could you explain to the audience a little bit of the business that you're in and the long-term strategy? David talked about it on the podcast too, but to me, I found it really amazing, especially when you go back and you look at the Woodlands, you look at Bridgeland, you look at Summerland, all of which are projects we've been lucky enough to work in, primarily Summerland, but they've been the top selling master plans. I know Summerland has been on the RC Elco's list for 28 years. Woodlands is off because it's kind of done now, to some degree. But I mean,
done now, still delivering 1,500 to 2,000 lots a year, but they're winding down. Right?
Yeah, they're winding down. And but talk a little bit about the business plan, and then let's roll that into thinking about entitlements, design, etc.
Well, so my whole career in community development, there were 3 communities we paid really close attention to, right? Mm-hmm. So the very first master plan community in the country done by private development is Columbia, Maryland. Mm-hmm. Howard Hughes owns it now, right? Yeah. It was the Rouse company. Jim Rouse broke all the rules during the era of white flight from inner cities. Jim Rouse went outside of Baltimore and did a fully integrated, open to everyone master plan community, and change the way we think about developing cities and communities. And it was it's 64 years old this year.
Oh, geez.
So, at DMB, we were always going to college, right? We studied these things constantly. So we actually flirted with Rouse in the late 1990s, early 2000s. We were talking to them because they do great mixed use commercial. And we were talking to them about One Scottsdale when we were doing Scottsdale DMB. So anyway, we flirted with them. We didn't study it intensely, but we studied the philosophy of a great master plan community. We studied the Woodlands intensely,
Yeah.
constantly. Let's take a big piece of land and do an amazingly beautiful community woven into a forest in north Houston.
Yeah.
You don't want to know what's in that forest. It's scary stuff, bugs, alligators, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's stunning. And Carter, you'll love this. I'd never been there physically.
Yeah.
I toured it 2 years prior to joining. I was in Houston with my old buddy, Bill Gosnell, and we were visiting a former client, and he lives right by the Woodlands. So I said, well, I got to go tour.
Yeah, you got to see it. Yeah.
And I caught my current counterpart, Jim Carmen, had taken over the Woodlands, and I got him on the phone. I just called randomly and said, hey, I need to talk to whoever runs the Woodlands. And he said, okay, go see this, this, and this. So I did a quick tour. We only had a couple hours anyway. So I've studied the Woodlands a long time.
Yeah.
And then Summerlin, we were sort of stepchildren of Mike Van Epp when he was running Summerlin years early at DMV. And he was kind. He would let us tour and he'd talk to us. And we employed the guys from both the Woodlands and Summerlin. We'd have wise men come in when we were doing new communities like Verado, and they'd sit in the room and we'd brainstorm. And we got to know both of them. So the DNA of those big communities was woven into my career path early. And the one thing that is different, so in about 14, 15 years ago, our current executive chair, rolled all these communities into a bundle with a few other things, and created Howard Hughes Communities. It's now Howard Hughes Communities, Howard Hughes Holdings for a while. And he noticed something different. And it's what you're hinting about, right?
Yeah.
All these communities built and held on to their commercial properties. So most community developers, DMB, great example, we would gamble. We'd build the commercial because you're usually out on the fringe and nobody wants to take the risk and all that. So we'd design really cool stuff like we did downtown Verado when we built, and we could not wait to sell it, right? It was a different business, a different risk profile. It was capital intensive, and we wanted to get our money back off the table and put it where our heart and soul was in the community. And so virtually every community developer in the country has that merchant model for their commercial real estate. Well, so along comes this new Howard Hughes Communities, and they've instantly have, I'll never forget this, my first year at the company, 2024, when the public books got reported at the end of the year, we had $500 million in net cash flow, and almost all of it was a result of our commercial building portfolio. And so in commercial, we include multifamily, so build-around apartments, office buildings, regional malls, all that stuff. We sell some of it, but mostly we've held on to it and reinvest, and it's an amazing cash generator for the company. So it gives you a different perspective when you say, I'm going to build this master plan, and I don't have to force the commercial when I do my primary job of getting people to live here and landing companies to office here so I have employment. It builds over time. Pretty soon, restaurants work, groceries work, all that.
Yeah.
And so you end up with this great mix of uses that help pay for the future as well as creating great communities.
So how was that thought process then? Two different documents, one being planning entitlement, what do the curbs look like, that kind of thing. But then how does that roll into the entitlements over time? So we kind of sort of don't have to go back to the city every time we want to change our entitlements.
Yeah.
Could you give us the calculus on that? And especially for some of our listeners that haven't worked with such large scale communities as you have, Charley, over the years. But then more importantly, a company that has a different mindset, meaning we're not here just to sell lots to builders, but we are long-term value creators, and we want to be commercial owners and operators.
Yeah. I need to think about how to organize that a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, it's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
No, and it really is. It's unusual. You need to sit and think about it a little bit.
Yeah.
So the main thing that's different is we think just the same as good master plan developers anywhere except California. California, they regulate so rigidly into here's your mini storage site. It has to be 4.2 acres and it's got a print that look, California is just totally broken in their thinking.
Yeah.
What you end up with is things that don't work, right? Over time, we don't know what's going to work, Carter.
Yeah.
We're just hoping. We're hoping and praying, right? So what we've done in Floreo as an example is we said, look, we know one thing's going to happen soon, and that's a neighborhood shopping center. We have to have a grocery. We have to have gas and convenience. That's a thing that we have to meet the basic needs of our residents. We've got to have a grocer soon.
Yeah.
One of our competitors up the street, when I left EMB in 2016, their residents were up in arms because they'd been promised a grocer.
Yeah.
They still don't have a grocer, right? It's been another decade.
Yeah.
And so we are different. We're looking at a neighborhood shopping center site and saying, okay, who do we want here, and what are we going to have to do to get them?
Yeah.
And interestingly, I got to be with a company that approached it the same way years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so we've said, okay, we know one thing for sure: gas and convenience during the development stages of this community is going to make money like you can't imagine, because we run thousands of people a week through the construction trades and all the early home shoppers and all that stuff. Everybody needs a restroom. Everybody needs a big gulp. Everybody needs fuel in their car. Everybody needs beer at the end of the day. Yeah. And so, you go to any community that put a good convenience store in early, it's thriving, right? Yeah. 20 years later, 40 years later, it's still front and center and it works well. So we know we're going to do that. And we know next to this shopping center, you're going to get other things. It's if you do non-traditional, so maybe you do the retail that looks like retail, feels like retail, and acts like retail, but right next to it, just a little bit over, maybe you do multi-tenant sort of office warehouse combination, where early on you can do the 3D mini blinds guy, you can get the landscaper, you can get pool supplies, and over time those evolve. And pretty soon you've got the design studio for a designer, and it goes full retail, full office. So on a simple basis in the shopping center, you look early on, and one of the granddaddies of the business was a guy named Charles Fraser, and he started in the Hilton Head. He did Sea Pines, and he birthed a whole group of the leaders of our community development business 50 years ago or more. He came and talked to us one time. He said, hey, when you're doing a master plan, go to a community the size of your building and get the yellow pages, back when there were yellow pages.
Yeah.
And he said, and look through those yellow pages and figure out what kind of businesses thrive in a small town like your building, because you're going to need those sooner rather than later. Build a little space for them, and you'll get them, because they're smart. They're going to find you, and they'll serve your customers. And so over time, we may start out with a little tiny handyman service, but over time we'll have an Ace Hardware, right? Yeah. And so that's how we approach neighborhood shopping centers. The thing that's really fun is we know we're hanging on to the commercial land. So we're not anxious about it. We define it, say that is future downtown Floreo. Yeah. And we draw a circle around it, and we say we're going to leave that alone. We'll work on it when it's time, and everything in between those two. So we'll have, my visual of what we'll have in downtown Floreo, right at the intersection of Sun Valley Parkway and Teravalis Parkway, the northwest corner there. We'll have what looks kind of like what I was building in Tempe. We'll have 4 to 6 story buildings, and we'll have great apartments, great office, mixed use, ground floor retail. you just have to be patient. You can't push it.
Yeah. And to our listeners, if you haven't seen Novus Innovation Park, is it Park or something? Corridor? You have to look at that because it was just vacant land around the ASU's football stadium. Now it's a mini downtown. It is just absolutely incredible on how you built that area out in a relatively short time period. It's just
first
incredible.
phase. It's pop. Yeah. It'll be an urban core. Now we're suburban. We're not going to have in these early stages. We won't have high rise. In the end, we will. And so. So I don't know if I'm doing a great job.
Well, and you just touched on it. So to our listeners, if you didn't pick it up, Charley said this is a 100-year project at the beginning of this. A lot of people, I can't think past 7 years, for a lot of the capital guys, but this is 100 years. And when David was on, and I think what you're saying, because we're going to have we're going to have a shopping center, then we'll have mid-rise, then we'll eventually have high-rise. Because what David was saying in some of the communities where they're more built out, we're going to take down the mid-rise and we'll build a high-rise. We're never done, I guess is what he's saying in relation to providing commercial facilities for these communities as they continue to grow out and build.
It's the Woodlands. They're tearing some stuff down in Columbia as well.
Yeah,
Summerlin not so much. Summerlin had enough land holdings. They're just going up. They've got great high-rise office buildings. The both communities. Woodlands is a better example. Woodlands went way out on the edge of town years ago. And what's happening now is they now have a jobs housing balance where they are a net importer of jobs during the day. Yeah. So it's become a reverse commute for people that live in Houston or live on outside of Houston. They're coming north to the Woodlands now because we've got massive employment there.
Yeah.
So let's talk back to the big picture. So 37,000 acres. The number one thing you have to have flexibility.
Yeah.
You can't, you asked about the entitlements. Our entitlements have to be very specific, but very flexible. And so, we pioneered a lot of this early day DMB. We did a thing called a land use budget. And so we take, you've got 37,000 acres. On that land, you're going to do these things. So in our case, it's over 100,000 housing units, and it's 55 million square feet of commercial things, and plus fire stations and schools, municipal, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so you have a budget that says I can't exceed those amounts. I get the right to build those things, and within those, great flexibility, so that you just don't know what's going to work 10 years from now or 5 years from now. Today apartments aren't working in a lot of locations. 5 years from now, they'll be working. And so where can we put them? And sometimes, always, our discipline is if you put a road in, you want to sell the land next to it because roads are expensive because they're not just roads, right? They include all the utilities and all that stuff. So we're always thinking about our infrastructure phasing, and you want something on it as soon as you can get it, because it just works magic for your pro formas and performance. So over time, you might have an apartment parcel that's not working in the marketplace. And you may say, that'll work for a shopping center. Let's do a neighborhood shopping center, or let's do single family there. And then we'll move that to another location and get to it when the market's better for it. Yeah. So that flexibility is really important. And the other thing, you asked what my first day, I'm sitting there thinking, how do you tackle 37,000?
I know. Yeah.
Where do you start? And
where do you start?
The really good news is our predecessors and current partners in Floreo, JDM and Eldorado Holdings had started. They had engineered, they had bid off a phase and they'd engineered it, and so it was really ready to go.
Yeah.
And so starting was easy because it was right there. It's logical.
Yep.
And so from that 300 acres forward, though, it gets a little more complicated because you have to think about, okay, where's the most efficient place to go where if I open up this piece of
Yep.
land over here, I can do my craft for, I can do a lot of business there.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is then, so anyway, we got started there. Concurrently, we hired a great land planner, and he's a real character, Peter Calthorpe.
Yeah.
And Peter is strident. Peter is Peter. He likes to do things his way. And so we spent a year with Peter saying, yeah, but we need to mix reality there. We had a great time, and he created just an amazing master plan for Teravalis proper, the 34,000 acres west of us. And what he does, any great planner starts with, what is the land telling me?
Yeah.
Right. And
I've heard that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And the great planners all start there. They're like, okay, so here's nature's things that we're not going to mess with. Here's mountains, we're not going to go tear those up. Here's waterways, here's things.
Yeah.
And then they think about it. And what happened with Peter is he did all that good stuff. And then he started looking at how does the land naturally divide up.
Mm-hmm.
And in our case, we've got a very large wash right through the middle of the community. And we've already started on the east side of that, with the up against the Hacienda River runs right through there. And so logic says, okay, we're going to start east of that because we've already started in that eastern portion of the property. And he broke the community into about 12 villages, including Florio being the first. And so we now have sort of a roadmap. It's not chronological perfectly.
Yeah.
It's pretty helpful to say, okay, where are we going next?
Yeah.
And so we've got a decision to make, right? Right now we've got big bridges we're going to have to build to get to whatever's next.
Yep.
So we're doing the analysis right now saying, okay, if we build this bridge, what's that cost and how much revenue is inside that bubble we get to? And if we build these bridges, what's that look like? So that's what we're doing right now. We're starting to look at it and say, okay, where do we go from here?
So I'm geeky because part of this, we just had you stepped in briefly for the meeting yesterday, and that and all of it's kind of coming together with the land use plan and the bridges and stuff. But what Peter is really a TOD, transit oriented development. Did that come up at all related to how we move people to? I'm just from what I know of Peter and what I've read, I don't know him personally, but did that come up at all related to how we?
There's a bunch of us in this business that are just total nerds on master plan community. And Peter was one of the founders of the Congress of the New Urbanists. They broke out in the late 80s, and they did Seaside and they did other things. And they said, gee, people need to walk to be happy and healthy and live good. Communities need to be walkable. Well, Peter ultimately got thrown out of the Congress of the New Urbanists because he said, well, yeah, but you can't go build everything as a walkable urban community. There's suburbs, there's exurbs, you got to have the spectrum. They're like, oh, blasphemy, and they threw him out. And he's feisty. He probably deserved to be thrown out. He's mellowed though, and so what he did 12 villages, if you will. Yeah, and they've all got some component of the suburban answer to urban services. Get things together, go up a little bit in height. Have your basic needs for shopping and services and office space and all those things, and then it builds to a very urban core down the road in the future of Teravalis. It'll be a city of 400,000 people. Right. It'll be a town. It's in a great city. Buckeye's got a big footprint, but it will be one of the biggest cores in Buckeye, if not the biggest. My prediction would be it'll be the biggest because we're out in front and we're serious about it. And it'll have pro sports and arts and culture and all those things that a city the size of, it's the size of we're bigger than San Francisco.
Exactly. That's what I was
Yeah.
going to say.
And-
Think of
yeah.
that. San Francisco, boom, dropped in. Yeah. There.
And so it does, it really help. He did a
Yeah.
masterful job where you can look at it and say, okay, we're going to go there next and we're going to go there. And you can picture existing communities that we know and love within that sort of plan and say, okay, that's where we're going to do that kind of a village and whatnot.
Well, and just as a side note, I had Robert Davis on the podcast, The Seaside. Love it. And he says, you got to get together with Peter because he and I have an idea. We need to know how to pay for it.
Oh,
So-
that's so fun.
I
I had never met him, and I'd never done a serious. We'd done one day where we did the Emerald Coast there on all the
Yeah.
St. Joe communities, and we had to walk through Seaside, but it had been 20 some odd years ago. Well,
Yeah.
Peter found out I was going to Florida for
Uh-huh.
holidays. My wife and I went to watercolor and just sat on the beach and
Yeah.
nothing. Well, it's walkable to Robert's front door, and
Yeah.
Peter connected us, and my wife and I went and spent a lovely evening with Robert, where he walked us through.
Isn't he a nice man? I mean,
Oh,
just
it's
so
amazing.
giving.
Walked
Yeah.
us through Seaside, and then we sat in the urban center,
Yeah.
in the courtyard, and we shared a bottle of wine, and just a really nice, thoughtful man. It was really the highlight of the trip.
Yeah. And I told him, I've been chasing you down since the 80s. You know, this is a highlight. Talking to you, Robert.
Well, and
Okay.
everybody
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
everybody should go see it and appreciate what it is. Just thoughtful, it was every detail was implemented. But he and I had a great conversation. Is you have your dream and you build it, and then people move in and they make it their dream, and you have conflicts because you don't agree on the dream, right? That's every community I've ever built. It's like, well, these people are moving in and they're ruining everything, which is not the case. It's just different than you imagined. And we had a great talk about it. He's, they now fight his commercial development. He owns most of the commercial. Pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, that concludes part one of my conversation with Charley Freericks at Howard Hughes.
You have been listening to the Land to Lots podcast with Carter Froelich. Follow us wherever you find your podcast to never miss a new episode.